Hey everyone. So you're gearing up for a system design interview, right? And you know how it feels, like this giant, kind of scary, undefined challenge. Well, don't worry. Today, we're going to crack the code on this thing. We'll break down exactly how to prepare, step by step, and turn all that confusion into a really clear, actionable plan.
And look, if you're feeling a bit lost right now, you are definitely not alone. That's actually the point. These interviews are designed to be ambiguous and open-ended. They're built to see how you handle complexity when there's no single right answer. And yeah, the stakes are pretty high, especially when you're going for those mid-level and senior roles, where this interview can make or break your chances. But here's the really good news. There is a clear path through all of this fog. And today, we're going to lay out that exact map for you. First, we'll talk about the challenge itself. Then, we'll get into your preparation roadmap. After that, we'll cover building your foundation, locking it all in with a solid practice loop, and finally, we'll give you a framework you can walk into the interview with.
All right, let's kick things off. We need to get a real handle on the challenge itself. Understanding why it's tough is the first step to figuring out how to beat it.
So the problems you get are intentionally vague, right? Design a ride-sharing service. The whole point is to see how you deal with that ambiguity. It's not a test of memorization. There's no single magic answer. What they're really looking for is your thought process. Can you explore the requirements? Can you make smart trade-offs, choosing between things like consistency and availability? And most importantly, can you explain your thinking out loud? Okay, so how on earth do you prepare for something like that? Well, I can tell you what doesn't work. Just randomly watching videos and reading articles. That's a recipe for feeling overwhelmed. What you need is a structured plan, and we're going to break it down into a super simple two-phase roadmap. It's really just two steps. First, you build a solid foundation of all the key concepts, and second, you practice until applying that knowledge becomes second nature. It's a simple 1-2 punch, and trust me, it works. All right, let's dig into phase 1, building that foundation. And here's some good news. You don't have to learn the entire internet. Your knowledge base just needs to stand on 3 really solid, essential pillars. So what are these pillars? Well, think of it like this. Pillar 1 is your core concepts. This is like the basic grammar and vocabulary you need to speak the language of system design. Pillar 2 is key technologies. These are the actual tools in your toolbox. And Pillar 3 is common patterns. These are the proven blueprints or recipes that show you how to put it all together. Okay, so core concepts. These are the big universal ideas that pop up everywhere. We're talking about things like caching to make things faster, sharding to spread out your data, or using consistent hashing to manage that spread. And of course, understanding fundamental trade-offs like the CAP theorem. The key here is that these ideas apply no matter what specific software you end up using. Next up, key technologies. These are the actual, brand name tools you'll talk about in the interview. You absolutely do not need to be a world-class expert on every single one, but you do need a go-to tool for every major job. For example, you should be able to say, for relational data, I'd probably use PostgreSQL. Or for fast caching, Redis is a great choice. Or for a message queue, I'm thinking Kafka. And that brings us to our final pillar, common patterns. These are your cheat codes, your recipes. So when an interviewer says, how would you handle 1 million writes per second? Or how do you build in real-time updates? You don't have to panic and invent something on the spot. You can just pull out a proven pattern that combines those core concepts and key technologies in a way that you know works. All right, so you've got your foundation. You know the concepts, the tools, the patterns, but how do you actually use all that knowledge? Because let's be real, knowing the theory is one thing. Applying it under pressure in an interview, that's a whole different ballgame. The secret here is what we call the practice loop. And let me be clear, passively watching videos of other people solving problems is not practice. It's not enough. You have to get your hands dirty. Pick a problem, grab a whiteboard or a piece of paper, and actually try to solve it yourself. Talk it out, draw the boxes and arrows, and then, only after you've tried, go compare your solution to an expert breakdown. That's where you'll see the gaps, and that's where the real learning happens. You'll retain so much more this way. Okay, all this work, building the foundation, running through the practice loop, it all leads up to this. Interview day. And when you walk into that room, you do not want to be winging it. You need a clear, repeatable framework to guide you from the moment you say hello to the final, any questions for me. And having a framework is so important because it keeps you focused on what actually matters. I love this quote here. So many candidates get bogged down calculating exact storage numbers just to say, yep, It's a lot. A good framework stops you from falling into those common time-wasting traps. Every step you take should actually influence your design. And here it is. This is the framework you can use every single time. It's a simple, logical sequence. You start with requirements. What does this thing actually need to do? Then you figure out your core data entities and design the APIs. After that, you draw the big picture, the high-level design. And then, with the time you have left, you dive deep into the really tricky parts, like bottlenecks or how you're going to scale. Seriously, think of this framework as your safety net. It's the absolute best way to avoid the #1 killer in these interviews: bad time management. If you follow a structure like this, you know you're going to cover all the important bases, and you'll end up presenting a complete, thought-out system. So let's wrap up with the most important point of all. Your goal here is not to memorize the solution for designing Twitter or Uber or anything else. The goal is to build a system for thinking, a structured way to prepare, and a clear framework to use in the interview. That's what gives you a repeatable process to tackle any hard problem they throw at you.